We're going to get started. Here we go. All right. Well, thank you for everybody for coming out. Hopefully everybody on Zoom can hear us. We have had our presenters online, so it's easy for us to tell when everyone can hear us. Now, not so easy to tell if everybody can hear us, but we got one yes in the chat box. So we're going to assume that you guys can hear us online just fine. I don't know if you can hear the donkeys behind us, but we've got a couple of falcons here today. We're in for a fun treat tonight. Okay, so welcome to the what is it? It's March, right? March 2023 hawk presentation. For those of you who don't know us, Habitat and Wildlife Keepers out of Matthews, North Carolina. We have, no, that's not advancing. Let's fix that. We're going to have a couple of technical difficulties tonight. I could tell only because we're doing things a little bit differently tonight. Let's see, there we go. It's advancing now. So for those who don't know, we're part of the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. We were first chapter back in 2006. So we are celebrating nearly 20 years, getting there close, and started over at Squirrel Lake Park. And again, the folks here who are local, but we have a lot of folks who around the country who started watching us when COVID struck, right? We went to Zoom meetings only, and we continued our presentations. So now we have a nice contingency of folks online that are getting to know us. So we want to try and continue that. Technically, hopefully it is working just fine. You know, one of the easiest things you can do if you haven't already done it, I know a lot of people in the room have, is certify their yards with the National Wildlife Federation. It's real simple. You know, what we're looking for is food, water, shelter, a place to raise young. Real simple. That's what wildlife needs. That's what we need. But there's one other little piece that we talk about, and that is being a sustainable and good land steward. So additional to food, water, shelter, and a place to raise young is not poisoning the ground. So this time of year, you see a lot of the trucks spraying everybody's lawn. You see a lot of folks sprinkling things on their lawns, spraying their yards, that type of thing. We encourage you to not enjoy the weeds, embrace the weeds. Maybe not kudzu and those kind of weeds, but embrace the dandelions. So, you know, we're a volunteer organization, and so we need assistance in all sorts of different ways. It could be a real small amount, or it could be a big piece that you help us out. Jonna in the back is helping us out with the AV and the cameras and all that kind of stuff. We certainly appreciate that. He's also done a number of videos for us for our Earth Day festival, which is coming up. I'll mention that in a moment. But if you've got 2 hours to help us out, or you've got 20 hours a month to help us out, we'll gladly have you. So reach out to us through our Facebook, through our online, call me, tap me on the shoulder, whatever it takes. So Earth Day is our next big event. It's coming up in April, Squirrel Lake Park, April 15th. The bit.ly link that you see over on the screen is, it is case sensitive, so the Earth and Day are capitalized that way. That's our volunteer sign up. So it's a sign up genius. If you want to try and help us out, maybe give out snow cones or help unload our exhibitors and various folks that are going to be bringing. In fact, these guys are going to be bringing a couple of birds as well to Earth Day. So you get a little up close and personal opportunity to see them there as well. So come and volunteer with us, or just come and build a birdhouse, get a rain barrel, all sorts of fun stuff at Earth Day this year. So this is one of the creatures that if you didn't mow down all your leaves and rake them down, and I don't know if you know, but they're about the size of my palm. Beautiful, huge moths. They overwinter in the leaf layer that's on the ground, and they're popping up right about this time of year. So a little bit, we're early for a lot of things, right? We've had a lot of warm weather here in the Carolinas. So you may start seeing these guys real soon. So if you don't rake up all your leaves and you're a good lazy gardener, this is one of the benefits to it. William Subaru has sponsored our Earth Day celebration for the last, I believe, 7 years now, and they are going to continue. And so they're our title sponsor for our Earth Day presentation coming up. Birdhouse on the Greenway has also been a long time sponsor. So thank you for them and for helping us out. I see we've got a whole lot more folks coming in. Could you guys grab a couple of chairs off that rack and bring it on this side? We've got a nice Girl Scout troop that just showed up. We need a whole bunch more chairs. So awesome. I tell you what, if you guys go and you go grab a chair over there and then bring it on back, or if you want to set up in the back over there, that'll work. Find a spot and you'll be in good shape. All right. All right. All right, it's pandemonium in here all of a sudden, right? That's good. This is a good kind of busy. All right. So while they continue to grab a whole bunch of extra chairs, we're going to have a full house tonight. We're in for a treat tonight. Aaron Kincaid, who's the president of the North Carolina Falconers Guild. I had the pleasure of going and hunting with these guys one time. I'm not a hunter. I don't shoot things, but what we're about to see are the hunters, and it is really a remarkable activity where normally you go into the woods and you happen to see a bird and you want to get a little closer to it, and as soon as you take that one step too close, it flies away, right? Well, these birds are trained to go ahead and go with us because they know that we're going to help scurry something up. A squirrel, a rabbit, a rat, a mouse, whatnot. And so the bird is following you through the woods. So it's taking a hike and you have a falcon or an eagle, or, I mean, they hunt with a lot of different kind of birds. So we're in for a treat tonight with Aaron, and he's got a couple of guys with him who also are falconers. So they're all going to have their birds out. So we're going to switch between the video. Of course, you in the room get, front row seat to everything, but the Zoom folks, we're going to try and switch, and so they can get a closer look at everything. So Aaron, if you come on over, I'll mic you up, and we'll try and remember to get mic'd everybody else, because yeah, no one else is going to be able to hear us. Oh, these guys will hear us, but no one on Zoom will be able to.
The people here that made the effort, they're the ones that matter, right?
Hear us. Hopefully you guys can still hear us. So welcome, Aaron. I'm going to switch over and get your presentation.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, you can go ahead if you want to just
all right,
figure it out.
I'm Aaron Kincaid. I'm the president of the North Carolina Falconers Guild. Your local falconer is standing back there. That's Brendan McGlinchey. I live in Landis, North Carolina, which is up the road a little ways. And then special guest, Mushtaba Raja. He is another falconer. You live in what, High Point? And these two gentlemen volunteered their time to help out tonight and add some insight. So thank you guys for having me again.
All right, you're good. You hit the space bar and it'll advance that.
Okay. Oh yeah, it is. So what better picture to show falconry than me? Two Harris hawks that you hear screaming in there, and then a dachshund. I use long-haired, miniature long-haired dachshunds to hunt with my hawks. Dachshunds were originally bred to hunt, and I mean that's why they're so short, so they could squeeze into holes or into brush. So that's their original purpose. And something to consider, a lot of hunting dogs were actually made for falconry because they came along before guns existed. So prior to guns, people, of course, were throwing spears or rocks or shooting a bow, but they were using dogs. So a lot of dogs were created to work with a hawk. So you said the space bar? So what is falconry? As Daniel said, falconry is a hunting activity. So it is not bird keeping. I'm not sure how much fun these guys would be to have around if we were not hunting. So we are hunting. That's what we do. What you can see here is a goshawk chasing a rabbit, and that's a falconry bird. So falconry in America. Falconry was started in America. It's pretty much agreed upon that it was the Craighead brothers who started it, and their sister wrote a very famous book called My Side of the Mountain. So the Craigheads found out about falconry through National Geographic magazine, and then they pursued it. kind of scrabbled, pieced it together little by little, and they're who we consider the founders of falconry in America. You can see here the two of them are they're radio collaring a bear, so they were pioneers in radio telemetry for wildlife. Oop, that's not space bar. There we go. All right, so falconry in North Carolina, it was legalized in the early 80s, and early on until now, it's been represented by our organization, the North Carolina Falconers Guild. We just celebrated 35 years. How to become a falconer. So you have to test. You take a written test at the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission office. You can ask me later, you don't have to. You have to take a test. You have to have your facilities inspected by a state biologist, and you have to serve a 2-year apprenticeship. So your 2-year apprenticeship, you can have a bird, you hunt with your bird, but you're working under a licensed falconer who's guiding you along the way. So it is the most regulated hunting activity there is. And for good reason. We don't want just anyone on a whim to be able to go out and grab a hawk. Speaking of which, how to obtain a hawk. You can get a hawk through trapping. We're allowed to legally trap a certain amount of wild hawks per year. It has to be certain types of hawks, certain status. So we're only allowed to trap immature hawks. So these are hawks who have left the nest and who have not completed a full year in the wild on their own. So do you guys know how to tell what an immature red-tailed hawk? You do? What's an immature red-tailed hawk look like? Very good, yeah. They just don't have the red tail. So if we're trapping red-tailed hawks, which is primarily what we're trapping here, we're looking for a red-tailed hawk that does not have a red tail. So good job to you. All right, or captive bred. So once you graduate from an apprentice falconer, you're allowed to get captive bred hawks. So I have a raptor propagation license. I can breed hawks legally. Not anybody can, not any falconer can. You have to have a special federal permit to do it. So one of the hawks I have is captive born, and the other one is wild caught. So let me see if I can get this. Okay. I was actually just going to kind of jump ahead because everyone wants to know how we trap hawks. No, you go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, this is a different video.
It's a different one. Yeah, they have 2 videos linked. Sorry. There we go. Yeah. And you said we're not going to have any audio.
We may not have audio.
That's fine. So it's a trap called a BC. The BC trap is it's a wire dome covered with small nooses, and inside the wire trap you can see is a gerbil in this particular trap. But sometimes people use mice, rats, sparrows, pigeons, and that whatever the animal is inside the trap actually is never touched by the hawk. So they're just traumatized by the hawk that's pouncing on the trap, but they're not actually touched by the hawk. So do you just want to, yeah. So this guy, he's driving around, he's looking for suitable birds. I'm sure he has his eye on some Harris hawks. I guess he's got a GoPro attached to the back of the trap. I've always meant to record me doing this. All right. So he saw the suitable hawks. He put the trap out and he drove a short distance away where he can watch. I like the symphony upstairs. It's like Jurassic Park with the goat. All right, see the Harris hawks coming in? Now, Harris hawks are unique in the hawk world because they hunt in a cooperative group. In falconry, we call it a cast. So if you've trapped Harris hawks like I have out west, you know when you see one Harris hawk, you're seeing a fraction of the ones that are actually there hiding, watching. So trapping can be a little bit, a lot of it is just sitting and waiting, wondering why this hawk isn't coming to the trap. They're smart, they know something's up. This is too easy. All right, here comes another one. To put in perspective, one trap that when I went to Arizona, pulled three hawks off of one single trap at the same time. And Brendan, I think you pulled 2 red tails off the trap, right?
So I had 2 red tails on one trap and then the sister buzzing over the top of it. So 3 trying to get, which is very unusual. Red tails don't cooperate.
And there's another one. I'm sorry, I paused it just as that was happening. We'll just let the whole thing play. How about that? I was going to jump ahead, but I think you guys are into it. No, just nothing's happening.
Vehicles coming by are the bane of our existence. Normally done on the side of the road or something?
Yeah, quite often the side of the road. This style trap. There's other traps that you can set that are stationary. This is a trap that has to be monitored. And if you pick up this trap and you go walking out into the field and you set it down and the hawks see you do it, they're not going to come to it.
They don't really feel scared of cars.
He's getting awfully close to them talons, isn't he? Now you see the bird's leg, it's caught in the trap already. It has a noose around its leg. But you always want to be sure that you actually have the hawk in the trap. I was trapping a red tail hawk in uptown Charlotte. There's a bunch of red tails there. And I thought she was caught on the trap and I went running up and she hopped off the trap and looked at me. And then I just backed off like that. And then she just went right back to the trap. She's very used to people.
That first one slipped the noose already.
Oh yeah, that happens. And look, there's 2 more behind him on the ground.
How many can you get on one trap like at the same time? Looks like you got 2 on this.
As many as could fit. I mean, I think with Harris hawks, you could probably pull 5 of them off of one trap the way they come in. It can get a little silly sometimes because they'll be caught, 20 ways that you have to go through. Sometimes you just have to cut the nooses off to get the birds, but it's actually it's a very effective, very safe way to trap the birds. All right. So he's there. Or no, they're dragging the trap now. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because he's coming in, so yeah. So then he would come in and he would throw a blanket or a towel over the birds, detangle them, check them out. A lot of times once we trap a bird, even if we don't want to keep that bird, we'll treat it for feather lice. Some people will give them a dewormer and then they'll let them go. So yeah, he's there getting the birds. So that's trapping. Just a reminder, you have to be a licensed falconer to do that, or that's a federal crime. If you could.
Back to you or
All right, there we go. Yeah, that's where we were. All right, thank you, sir. All right, so that's in a nutshell how you can obtain a hawk. And then here's the other video. So once you get your hawk, I said we're a hunting sport. We're participating in a hunting sport, and then we have to hunt. So people always ask how we hunt the birds. You might expect the bird to fly away, grab the squirrel or rabbit, and then bring it back to us. So that's not how it works. Yes. In that BC trap, I've never seen it happen. I suppose it could happen, but it probably wouldn't hold them. So if their beak slipped into it, they could probably just slip it right out.
Is there any other like common ways of trapping?
That's the most common way. I've snuck up on red tails and caught them by hand before. I'm dead serious about that. He saw it. So we had a roadkill squirrel on a string, and I threw the squirrel, and the red tail came down to it, and then I slowly made my way up to the red tail, and just kept sneaking up until I got close enough to grab it. So. Oh, the video is playing in the background.
Aaron, when somebody asks a question, if you would repeat it, so people understand.
Sure. And this is the last video, Daniel.
Bring it over.
Probably would have been easier if I emailed you the stuff, huh?
That's right. It all works. There's good.
All right, so I shot this video on a whim one day with my iPhone, and I thought it was pretty good. So unfortunately, you guys aren't going to get to hear the royalty-free bluegrass music on it. So you'll see my dachshunds. There's my little buddy right there. Look how cute he is. Unreal. Look at that. There he goes. So this is the kind of habitats that I look for rabbits. Some of the most underlooked, disturbed areas. This is under a power line. So a power line cutover kind of behind a medical office. And these areas here, they pushed all the trees off, and the native vegetation is regrown, and it ends up being a great habitat for songbirds and rabbits as it is. When I'm walking through there, I see countless little songbird nests that are like 3 or 4 feet off the ground. I always wonder what they are.
And these are your birds?
These are my Harris hawks, yeah. And then without the audio, you're not gonna get to hear the rabbit squeal, and that's unfortunate. But
Never your audience, Aaron.
yeah, when rabbits are in distress, it's a really it's not for the faint of heart.
And the falcons don't go after your dog. That's about.
They're trained to work with them, and they like the dogs. When the dogs smell a rabbit, they're on the scent of a rabbit, they do something called opening up, which is them. It sounds like the dogs are dying. They start going, rah, 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 and when that happens, the birds, you can watch them. If they're not paying attention, their heads turn and they zero in on what the dogs are doing. They know it's a cooperative team. Now, the dogs have overstepped their boundaries and learned some lessons the hard way, but so you can see the dachshunds don't have much issue going through the briars. All right, so what's happening here is that bird just saw a rabbit, and then the dachshunds are in there. You can see the camera getting excited because I'm holding it, and I hear the commotion, and then watch that hawk just swoop down and grab the rabbit. So that's that's the hawk on the rabbit. So then what we do is we'll go in and we'll dispatch the animal that they're on, the game as we call it, and then we'll trade the hawks a piece of meat for whatever it is, and then we go about our day.
So why are they willing to trade you a whole rabbit for a little piece of meat?
Daniel asked why they are willing to trade for a whole rabbit for a little piece of meat, and that's because hawks can't do math. Thank God, or this whole thing wouldn't work. So we're about to catch one more rabbit, and then the video's a wrap. So I have 4 miniature dachshunds that I hunt with, and there's been times where I'll go out with the whole pack, and people call it the circus when that happens, and sometimes that's what you got to do to get those rabbits out. Rabbits are very common in yards, but in the wild they're pretty tough to get. So they just caught another one, and both hawks were on it. So I dispatched it, traded it off, and then we walked back towards the truck. And the Harris hawks are unique in hawks in that they love to come back to the truck when we're done. Sometimes we're not done hunting, and the Harris hawks will see the truck. You're like, oh no, they saw the truck. They go flying in. All right, so hopefully that gives you an idea of what hunting rabbits is like. Squirrel hunting is a little different, but the principle's the same. I hunt a lot of rabbits. It's my favorite prey to chase. Most falconers in North Carolina hunt squirrels, and Brendan and Raj, I can tell you more about squirrel hawking once we wrap up the presentation.
So do you take rabbit, take it?
Yeah. Someone asked if what we do with the animals that we catch. Generally, we take them home and we'll clean them and put them in the freezer and feed them to the hawks later. Every now and then I'll eat rabbit or squirrel, but they like it more than I do.
You don't save pellets.
They eat it all. Yeah, they eat it all. Fur, bone, skin. All right. Thank you. All right. So that brings me to another point. In North Carolina, if you want to be a falconer, you have to hunt what you have. And what we have here are squirrels and rabbits. And then we have some starlings and sparrows, European sparrows, which are both invasive species. And there's an open season on them, or pigeons too. So you're free to hunt those all year. So you can hunt rabbit, squirrels, or small birds that are in season or not legally protected. So for more information, check out the North Carolina Falconers Guild.org. And that does it for the PowerPoint. And then we'll get some birds out and you guys can ask us individual questions. But while I'm mic'd up, does anyone have a question for me? Yes.
When the hawk catches the prey, does he immediately?
No, unfortunately, hawks, you know how hawks kill things? They eat them to death. So
They don't do it.
no, we go in and that's part of our role as falconers. Myself and these guys here, we have a lot of respect for the game that we chase. And yeah, I love rabbits and squirrels. I really and truly do. And I don't want to see them suffer needlessly. But so I go in and all falconers go in and dispatch. We don't let them just eat the prey to death. So good question. Yes, ma'am.
If you're getting like hawks and there's multiple on one trap, what do you do if they start like flying away with multiple ones?
So the question was, what would we do if we get multiple hawks on one trap and we're concerned about whether or not they could like lift up the trap and fly away with it? So believe it or not, hawks, that's a great question, but hawks can't. A lot of people will assume hawks could pick up a rabbit, go up in the air and fly away with it. They can't do it. They're not that powerful. If you had a really small trap and like a golden eagle grabbed it, it could fly away with it. But the traps we use, they're too heavy for hawks to carry away. But that was a great question, even if there were multiples on it. Yes.
The dachshunds ever catch the rabbits too, or they just smell them and lead the hawks to it?
So the question if the dachshunds ever catch the rabbits, occasionally they do. They've caught rabbits and they've caught squirrels. Sometimes if the hawks get the rabbit or the hawks, especially squirrels. So if the hawks grab a squirrel and they take it to the ground, The squirrel sometimes will get away. Actually, fairly often squirrels can get away because their hide is like, it's bulletproof, it's tough. Squirrels are so tough. You can barely cut them with a knife. Their hides are so tough. So sometimes they'll get away on the ground. And at this point, I've done it so many times, I don't even think much about it. It gets away and I'm like, oh, great, got away. And I turn around and the dogs have it, shaking it. So, and then every now and then the dogs will get one inside a hole in a tree. And the squirrel has nowhere to go, so the dog will grab it. But yeah, occasionally the dogs do get their teeth on the action. Good question though.
When you said that you sometimes hunt birds like pigeons, do you do anything differently? Or there's just a lot of those birds at a certain season? How does that work?
So anytime you have to, as a falconer, the question was, Brennan reminded me earlier, the people on Zoom can't hear you. So when I say that, the question is, how do we hunt birds? It just depends. I was lucky enough to catch a wild bobwhite quail with my hawks last year, and the dogs flushed it out of brush while we were hunting rabbits. And the whole covey of quail went flying, and the hawks were there, and a hawk grabbed it. But for things like sparrows, believe it or not, people usually do that in urban settings. So, when you're at Walmart or the grocery store and you see sparrows all over the ground, a lot of times people will go like in a closed down shopping center or something, and they'll see sparrows, foraging.
The environment that you're hunting in, and an environment with rabbits and squirrels would have birds also, and it's just a chance thing.
It can happen, yeah. But prey acts very differently when there's a hawk around. So usually when there's a hawk, the birds sit really tight and they're not moving much. They all know. It's like squirrels. Squirrels are everywhere, right? Until you put a hawk up, and then squirrels are nowhere.
Hey, Aaron, do you want to put your bird on a glove?
Sure. Yeah. So this bird that's screaming, well, they're both screaming, but this particular bird, I trapped her in Arizona. She's a wild caught bird and she's immature. So she has her immature feathers. So she's a Harris hawk. And so far, her name hasn't really stuck with her. So I've just been calling her the baby because she's the baby amongst the group.
Aaron, I'm going to turn the lights on. Is that okay?
Yeah. All right, now I'm going to do something I've never done before. I'm going to handle them both at the same time and hope for the best. This is Quetzal. I've had Quetzal a long time. I've had her for 6 years. She's my good, reliable hawk, except now she's going to act a fool. Let's see. There we go. All right, Quetzal's. A lot easier to manage one. So these are two Harris hawks. You can see if you would turn around. You want to turn around, girl? So you can see with her, the color's different. So this is an adult bird, and this is a juvenile bird. Can you guys see the difference? Did she just poop? Did she? She will. I guarantee one of them will. But so this is an immature bird. This is an adult bird. And the hawks are as big as they're going to get when they come out of the nest. They're not going to grow any more than that. Who knows what she's saying? She's saying something though. These guys are cooperative hunters that hunt together. These two actually don't gel too well, so I'm still working on that. But she has hunted with many different Harris hawks over the years, and this girl was trapped wild last year, so she's hunted with her family unit. So these are among the smartest of raptors. They can be a little frustrating to hunt with sometimes because they truly have a mind of their own, and what we want may not be what they want to do. So I realize with her backed up, you guys, you're in the firing. But so yeah, does anybody want to? They're very intelligent birds, and they will not just haphazardly grab a squirrel because they know squirrels are tough. So it can be frustrating sometimes. They're playing a game of tag in the treetops with a squirrel because they're not going to commit to grabbing a squirrel if it means they're going to get bit. So anyway, there's two Harris hawks.
These are as big as they're gonna get.
When they come out of the nest, hawks are the size they're going to be for the rest of their life.
Well, this one looks smaller than this.
Okay, well that's a good observation because different individual birds can be bigger than others.
Okay.
So this bird may fly, let's say, at 825 grams. So we try and manage their weight so they're not too light, they're not too heavy. We want them as pretty specific weight. She might be at 825 grams. She could be 900 grams, and they could be the same species, just like you and I.
So her foliage gets the same as this one.
When
How long does it take up to feed that?
she's going to start dropping her feathers this spring, so by next fall she'll look like her.
I was told that they're both males,
These are both females, yeah.
and I was wondering why the difference in the sound of their voices. And I was told, just like we all have different, yeah, right, of our voices, that it depends on where they were born and who they were with, and
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, so different groups of Harris hawks will have different vocalizations.
Uh-huh.
What she's doing is more of a babyish thing. This is a mature croaky sound. Hopefully she stops doing this year.
Baby tone.
Yeah. So that is like almost like an immature food begging kind of sound. Hers is just a crabby, squawky sound. That's a food bag. That's a food bag. So, well, that was fun holding two Harris hawks. Normally I open the boxes and just cut them loose and we go about our business. But let's see what I can do here. Usually she'll hop right in. Probably we learn to do things with no hands or one hand as falconers. There you go. Good girl. Turn around. Turn around. There we go. She'll figure it out. Okay. So any questions about Harris hawks specifically? Yes. That's a great question. They can gorge themselves. They have their crop is right here. The question was how much they can eat. So they have a crop here, and the crop fills up and then works its way to the stomach. So they can eat as much as that crop can hold. And so sometimes you'll see them and they'll have a crop so big they can't even put their head down. So they just kind of relax. But as far as specific amount of weight, I'm not really sure exactly how much that would be. Generally every day. So they're expensive to feed, which is why I say if they're not hunting and catching the bulk of their food, they're really expensive. I don't know. Does anyone have reptiles and buy mice and rats? Do you have reptiles, ma'am? I'm just teasing. Yeah, do you have reptiles at home? Depending on where you buy mice, they can be $2 or $3 each, and these guys could eat 3 or 4 a day. So imagine that. So we like them to catch their own food.
The bell for your purpose or like?
It's to warn. It's because it's not fair to the prey. So the question was about the bell. That's a joke. The bell is so we can interpret what's going on by the sound of the bell. So if they're in a tree and you hear a certain level of jingling of the bell, you know, and we can't see the bird, we could assume, okay, they probably have something in the tree that they're chasing.
But the bell doesn't scare off the prey?
We're not sure about that. We think that some squirrels get smart to that eventually. That the bells are ringing, let's hide, but we're not entirely sure about that. Any more questions about the Harris hawks?
So do you also use males?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, do we just use females? Because that's mostly what you see in falconry. The reason is that females are generally larger in birds of prey. So females are, you know, the number they say is 25% larger than males, depending on the species. So after I trapped her and we were driving back, I was driving through New Mexico and I saw an eagle, golden eagle, sitting on a power line. And I was like, man, that thing is huge. And then I come around the corner and I go, never mind, there's the female. She was massive. So believe it or not, the male Harris hawks are teeny little birds, and Harris hawks are not big birds. You'll see some big birds here in a second. All right. Any more Harris hawk specific questions? Once we're wrapped up, if people want up close pictures, I'll get Harris hawks back out for pictures. But I'm going to put her up so I can help these gentlemen here by holding the mic up to them. So Brendan, your local falconer, and Raja. Raja first. Okay. Playing your theme music, bro. Get in your pocket, big boy. Alrighty. All right. So Raja.
Well, hello everyone online and hello everybody in person. My name is Raja. I started doing falconry when I was 16. I'm originally from Pakistan. My father flew birds his whole life. My grandfather flew birds his whole life. So now I'm getting ready to show you guys my bird that I'm flying this year and a lot of other birds for the rest of my life. So here we got a female red-tailed hawk. She weighs 52 ounces. Her name is Asira, which means lion's heart. And she is a stone cold killer. She weighs 52 ounces. So I don't know how many grams that would be, but a lot. So here's what you would see a lot outside at your house. Or if it's not this, it's the red-shouldered hawk, which is the one that's black and white. But this bird here is phenomenal at catching everything. Usually when in the wild, I feel a poop coming. It's usually mice and occasionally your chickens. But she's done a lot with squirrels. She's a phenomenal squirrel bird. As you can see, sometimes a squirrel bites them. So she has little tiny bites, but they always heal from it. Told you, that's a big one. I'll give her. But she's very docile, very good red tail. Her mentality is very easygoing. And she's a second-year bird.
When do you put the hood on their heads? And, you know, what's the purpose? I mean, I guess the purpose is to keep them calm.
So a bird with a hood on its head is going to be a very quiet and gentle bird because it can't see. A bird can't smell like a dog, and it really can't feel like a dog with its whiskers. So it relies heavily on its line of sight. So now when that bird has a face cover, she's like, what are you doing? He can't see much. So he's bound to sit there, and it's a form of, say, when you go out and you kill something, the bird kills something to eat, and you put the bird's food away, you want to put a hood on the bird so the bird doesn't try to go back and eat. And it keeps them calm and mellow. Like another bird in this situation that was acting crazy, you'd want to put a hood on so it couldn't see, and now it's going to sit there gently and quietly.
since they're in a strange environment.
Yes.
What's the incentive for a wild bird to stay with someone?
Food.
You know, they get the same diet.
I'd follow someone for chicken nuggets too. It's easier than going on the side of the road and looking for rats. So that's what they get. They're real happy about that.
When people say, well, that's not right, the birds should fly free, they have about 1,000 chances a year to fly free. And do they ever? Very rarely. There's been times where falconers couldn't get their bird back at the end of the day, and they got to come back in the morning because when the sun sets, they just sit tight in the tree. But generally speaking, it's a good deal for them. Yeah. But they're free to go if they wanted to.
Yes.
When you train them, do you have them on a string? I worked at an outdoor ed school, and we had a red hawk, and we had it on a string, and they let go of the string once, and they had to climb a pine tree and get all the rope untangled.
Yes, so that string is called a creance. And that creance keeps it's your guarantee, it's your insurance that the bird is going to come back. And you do that a few times until you know this bird is ready. When you have a feeling when it's ready, and when it's ready, you go. That's when you know you're ready when you're ready. You're asking.
So when you're talking about, then they know sometimes when it's time to go or be released, then will they keep coming back to your house, or like they'll just go?
Once they're fat and happy, they're gone. They're going to go and find a mate and reproduce. And we're going to contribute to the wild population of red-tailed hawks in North Carolina. Yeah.
It depends. It varies bird to bird. So you're about to see a red tail that's getting ready to be released, correct? Brendan? You don't like that.
All right, hello. So I'm Brendan McGlinchey, and I live just down in Unionville, just a little bit below here, down in Union County. And this is Pidge. Now, Pidge is a male. So you guys were asking about females versus males, and he is a 4-year male. And what Raja said is exactly true. He's a very smart red-tail relative, and he's figured out that this is all a game, and that he ends up on the short end of the stick every single time. And so he's become a little wise to it, and he started to do his own thing. So he flies at about 32 ounces, and you heard Big Bottom over there was at 52 ounces, right? So he's a handsome bird, and you can see he's deep into his adulthood. See how he's got very dark eyes, got the more charcoal on here. With another 2 years on Raja's bird, it's just darker. Their eyes get really dark. I say they get as dark as their soul. But he's been a fantastic squirrel bird. I got to find out there's that poop. Very, very intelligent bird, and he's been a lot of fun. But yes, we're going to actually release him this year, and he'll get to go and find the love of his life and make other little birds. There were a couple of questions I wanted to follow up on a little bit. One question was about the bells. Another thing that's unique about raptors is when they're in the sky, they're great. They're kings of the sky. When on the ground, they're very vulnerable. And so when they get on the ground, they're quiet. And if you see their markings, when they mantle out over prey, you can imagine how that blends right in with your oak and maple leaves and everything else. I have been 15 feet from a bird for over 10 minutes. Well done. Wow. That was bigger. 32 ounces. I've been right next to a bird that was sitting there completely still. In order to eat, they're using their feet quite a bit. And so when they move their feet, they jingle the bells, we key into where they are. So it's also an auditory signal to us, particularly around hunting. I mentioned from the back, I don't know if you guys could hear it, but one of the birds prior, I was up off 485 up near Harrisburg, and we had 3 red tails trying to get to the same trap. I'm quite sure it was 3 nest mates because they were very familiar with each other in their fighting. But that was a fun experience. The bird I got out of that was one of those that was going to be in the 90%. He was a horrible hunter. He couldn't grab a thing. He preferred the bowling ball method of hitting it and knocking it away. So he got past the first year of life. Yay for him. I hope he's doing exceptionally well. But yeah, we do leave them better than we find them, right? They make it out of that first year. We treat them for parasites, whether they're feather parasites or internal. We teach them how to hunt bigger prey, right? So instead of just mice or rats, they're now going after rabbits, squirrels. Did you get a chipmunk? I think you did. But yeah, they go after larger things. Myself, I got into falconry because of my sons. That's also why I don't have dogs. I have 2 sons, right? So they move around and hunt after things. But I have a now 21-year-old and a 14-year-old, and walking through the woods for endless weekends and sometimes trapping before and after work. It's been a tremendous amount of time that we get to spend together, so it's been fantastic. Questions?
Become a falconer.
Yep. So the question is, how old do you have to be before you can be a falconer? And this section of the room should pay attention now. But you have to be 12 years old to be an apprentice. Now, most sponsors will not take a 12-year-old. They're just not stable enough quite yet. And it requires a level of maturity to be a falconer. You're always problem solving. You get thrown curveballs like you'd never imagine when you're dealing with wild animals. And so 12 to start as an apprentice, but you cannot be a general falconer, which is when you are a full falconer until you're 16. So my son, who is now 14 and almost 15, he started when he was 12, but he won't be able to finish apprenticing for a total of 4 years when he's 16. But yes, 12 years old. Yes? Not a single person in falconry gets paid at all. So the question was, do apprentices just do apprentices get paid, or do they just watch? Nobody in falconry gets paid. There are a few people who have worked it into a few gigs. I imagine the person at the Renaissance Festival gets a little bit. There's some bird abatement. If you ever watch Wimbledon, there's a Harris hawk like Aaron has that flies around and keeps the pigeons. But the rest of us, I mean, I work in technology leadership. Aaron is a school counselor. Raj is a zookeeper, basically. But we all do other things. And as Aaron was mentioning, it ends up being something we pay for because of the expensive equipment and such. So no, this is very much something that we do because we enjoy it. Just like you guys as a part of the nonprofit, this is our fun. It's more than a hobby, but it's a hobby. More than a hobby. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Do they have a mating season?
They do. They at least red tails mate permanent. They choose a permanent mate. I believe it's by year 3 is about when they get to that maturity. So yes, now is that time. So they're not cuddling right now. That's not what you see out there. They're actually procreating. I had a friend come and said, one bird was standing on top of the others. But yes, this is now, and they'll nest. Now's the time. Time for love. Now's the time. Other questions? Yes.
So when they choose a mate, do they stay with them permanently like bald eagles stay together for life?
That's my understanding, yes. Now, it's not quite as cuddly. Oh, repeat the question. Do they mate for life when they find a mate? That is my understanding. It's not quite as cozy and cuddly as the Harris hawks that have the family groups, but you will see them together, and there's cooperation in bringing game back to the nest. Yep. Yes, sir.
What's the requirement to keep them?
So, you mean how long can you keep them, or what do you have to do to get to a point where you're a falconer? Okay. So the question was, what's required to keep them? So in order to become a falconer, there's a test that you have to take. I've done a number of professional certifications. It's not an easy test. It takes a significant amount of time to study for because the area is so broad that they pull from. So a test that you have to take, you have to build a facility that meets state requirements and have a state biologist inspect that. And then the hardest thing is you have to find one of us cantankerous fellows to work with you for 2 years and tell you everything there is to know about falconry. So all 3 of those requirements then put you as an apprentice falconer, where you can then go and trap your bird. Now, as far as keeping the bird, once you're a falconer, whether apprentice or general, you can keep your bird. Now, I don't own Pidge, right? But I have custody of him. He's a wild bird. Within a couple months, we'll feed him up, release him out, and he'll go off again. But I could do that. I could have done it after the first year. There's a gentleman I was on a Facebook group with, at least as of last year, who was hunting the bird in its 27th year. So in captivity, they can live very long lives. In the wild, 95% of them are dead by year 5, right? So that's the case. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay. Yes? Why am I releasing Pidge? Because I chase him too much now. So really, I'm going to go a little more detail. So when you first trap that bird, the bird is scared to death, right? You weigh 100 times as much as the bird does, and it's convinced it's going to die. So for a period of time, it's just teaching it's going to survive, right? And so wings start to drop. It gets a little less cautious. You see how he's just all the wings in, tailed in, sitting upright, just looking at me. Well, it's not like that, but it gets to this point, and we introduce food. And food is the entire currency of the relationship, right? This bird will not fly to me just because. It's flying because it's the expectation of food. And so we train to food, then we move out and get their head up and look for game. And we've acclimated the bird to us, so it gets game, comes to the ground, as he was saying, dispatch it and help it eat and then go back home. But after a while of that learning, the bird learns, well, I catch things, I get more food as a trade-off, but then we stop. And he starts ranging out on his own and experimenting, right? And finding that he doesn't need me. And so after 4 years at this point, he's learned that he probably wants to do this on his own and not with me anymore. So we have telemetry that we put on, so radio telemetry. There's a little brace back here. Sorry. I know, it's all up there, right there. But we put a little piece of radio telemetry on there that allows us to track them over long distances. But a couple times this year, I've actually had to pull that out and cover 1.5 miles or so. So we're going to let him go. We'll start over again. Some of it also, it's fun to make a new friend, right? A different person, different personality. And so the birds are like that as well. Everyone is different. And so starting over and getting a new experience is part of it as well. But good question. Yes? When you release them, will you leave that on there and track them just to see how they're doing, or that comes off when they go? Yeah, so the feather that we have on here, that I have that on, is actually the first feather to go when they molt. So I'll probably wait until he kicks that, because it's crimped on there pretty well. But that telemetry is short-term as well. I don't think the battery lasts over a couple of days, even in low mode. So no, I'll let him go. Every once in a while, I'll go by a spot I've released a bird and be like, wonder if that's it, but no. Yes, question?
Do you release them anywhere, or do you release them in a really nice place?
Do I release them anywhere or in a really nice place? Now, what would be a really nice place to you? Like the beach?
No, like a place with a lot of food.
Yeah. So what I usually do, just me, is I go onto Google Maps and I look for like the most hardwoods and the fewest houses, and I usually go there. But yeah, we're usually trying to find a good place where there will be lots of prey. Now, every square inch out there is already claimed by a raptor, right? So he's gonna have to battle, right? But we know this, right? Everything's a battle out there, right? He's gonna have to battle for territory. So the fact of the matter is, if I release him someplace, he's gonna say, all right, who's here? Oh, nope, I'm gonna go over there. Or, I think I've got this, you need to move. So they'll figure it out. There's a constant flow within nature. But yes, I do try to find the exact right spot.
I release my birds in your honey spot.
So there was another question about whether they engage with other birds while they're out. A couple of years ago, my oldest son's bird just took off for the top of a pine tree, and we thought, of course, it's a squirrel he's hitting, and it wasn't. A great horned owl exploded from the top of the tree, and a single feather of the great horned owl came spiraling down to the ground. But the bird did not chase the great horned owl. During the day, they tend to be the predators for the great horned owl. At night, though, it switches, and they better be safe, or else they're the ones that get eaten. So they are enemies.
Isn't the great horned owl bigger than these guys?
Mm-hmm. The great horned owl is bigger than these guys.
And they
Bring it.
all right.
Yeah, no, they can get in some pretty good tussles. Yes, Daniel.
So follow up to the question, where are you gonna release this guy?
Yeah.
Were you still planning on releasing him?
So there is a possibility that he or another bird will get released at the Earth Day Festival. So, but I didn't want to guarantee that, but yes, that's a possibility. Tease. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like some other birds, they basically, when the kids fight each other to death, they usually stop it, or some actually let that happen.
Yeah.
Do they let the kids fight each other to death, or stop it?
That's a great question. So the question was, in nature, some parent birds will break up fights and not allow that to happen. I don't know so much about nest type behavior, unless you do. You do? Go ahead.
The nest is full of babies. Some of those babies are not making it out.
Yeah.
Because the others killed them.
Yeah. Yeah, so what Aaron said, there's a lot of competition. And what I can tell you is when they get old enough, the parents will boot the young ones out of the territory. They become adults, they become competition. Go find your own. I'm sure some of you have done that with your kids too. Yes, ma'am.
I've seen some major crow fights.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't understand why they can't hold their own when they have beaks like that and claws. They seem to get beat up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, the question was, a lot of crows will terrorize these birds. Why is that? Why don't they fight back? Sometimes they do, and if they're in the air, sometimes they'll grab a crow out of the sky. But crows are very agile. I call these guys the Ford F-150s of falconry. They're slow, they're steady, they'll get the job done, but they're not going to win many races. So crows as well engage in kind of the dive bombing behavior where they'll set up on cycles, and really what they tend to do is what an older brother does, which is like, I'm not paying attention to you, I'm not going to indulge you, and eventually the crows will usually leave. But yes? Won't crows gang up on? Oh yeah, crows are bullies. Yeah, crows gang up on other birds all the time. You've had a crow before, right? Yeah, they're very smart.
They're pushing their limits. Every now and then a raptor will decide that crow needs to die.
Yep. Yes, what's your question?
What if the bell thing on their ankle or on their leg is loose and then it just falls off?
So the question is, what if a bell falls off? Is that really it? Then my sons have to go find it. Yeah, I mean, we lose things. We lose these things all the time. All right, one more question.
Those bells
Yes.
are to alert you when they're on the ground or wherever who are their natural enemies on the ground?
Mhm.
Like coyotes?
Yes.
Oh,
Coyotes, foxes, dogs.
dogs too.
Yeah.
Cars.
Cats don't want to engage in this. Of course, they don't want to engage with cats. We had one go after a cat one time. It missed. That was good.
Our hour is up, guys, but speaking for myself and him, because he's riding with me,
Oh.
we'll be available to answer questions.
Yeah. Okay.
How about you?
I didn't realize we had an hour. Yeah, I can. And I also, I am around here, so I will make a plug real quick before we finish up. We hunt, but we don't hunt on acre lots. So those of you that either have access to or know of individuals that have larger lots of land. I hunt a good deal down in Peachland or Marshville or those types of areas. But 20, 40, 100 acres that are hardwoods, we have access to them. We walk. We're not shooting anything. We take a squirrel or two every now and then. So if you have access to those or can put me in touch with individuals like that, it would be very much appreciated, because I'm not a wealthy landowner, as she pointed out back there. I don't get paid for this. So I do have some cards I'd be happy to hand out if you have access to that. So there you go. All right, thank you. There we go. Are we going to do it this time? There we go. Oh, sorry.
Say goodbye to everybody on Zoom. Everybody on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us. If you were, yeah, I was told to watch where I'm walking. Yeah, I missed it. That's good. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on Zoom, and obviously good reason for you to come and join us in person from now on. You get to see these guys. So thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and end the meeting on Zoom.